All rise. Thank you. Welcome, Mayor Elorza, to the City Council chambers. Madam Clerk, let's go back in session. Council members, can stand at ease, and Mayor will give his presentation. Welcome.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the hearty welcome. I do got the best team in the United States of America. I love you too. I love you too. At first you were embarrassing me. Now I'm getting a little emotional. Good evening, everyone. Mr. President, honorable members of the Providence City Council, members of the Providence delegation, our City Hall team, fellow residents of our great city, and if I can just say most importantly for me, my wife Stephanie and Omar. It's a pleasure to be with you this evening to present my proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Now, the world has changed in so many ways since the last time we came together. And while we're all anxious about what the new normal will be and wondering what kind of changes lie in store, we often ask, how is the world going to be different in the future? What's going to change? But I believe there's a far more important question that we should be asking, and that is, how is the world going to be the same in the future? What things are permanent and unlikely to change? As I think about this question, and I am getting a little emotional, I can't help but think of it from the perspective of being a dad. I catch myself getting butterflies and a little emotional when I find myself doing some of the same things with my son Omar that my dad did with me as a child. Sledding in the snow at Roger Williams Park, dropping him off at school with his little backpack, or just walking to the corner store, holding his hand. I'm often left pondering the circle of life and the reality that the more things change, the more they stay the same. But no matter how much the world changes around us, there are certain things that just aren't going to change. They're timeless and permanent. We all want to live in stable homes and neighborhoods that provide comfort and security. It was true before the pandemic, and it's true after. We all want to improve and do better so that our kids can go even farther than we did. And we all want to belong to a community, family, friends, and neighbors, and feel that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. These three things will never change. Now, it's not up to city government alone to nurture and preserve these three things, but we do play an important role. For starters, for our residents to feel secure, there has to be a basic level of stability in our finances, and our finances have to be solid. 7 years ago, when many of us came into office, the city faced deficits and liabilities totaling over $20 million, and we were facing state oversight. Today, we've turned that deficit around into a surplus of almost $30 million. The first time we've had a real surplus of that size in probably 50 years. Our credit rating has gone from virtual junk bond status to solid investment grade. And just a few months ago, Fitch Rating Agency gave the city its first positive outlook in a decade. And to capitalize on this, we're asking residents to approve a pension obligation bond in the coming months that will help us address the lingering challenge of the unsustainable pension payments. Please come out on June 7th, vote yes on question 1, and help save our city. Our sound fiscal management, combined with recent pension reform with our 3 partner unions, the laborers, police, and fire, allow us to present this budget for the 8th straight year without raising tax rates. Property values have grown, and they've grown so much in the past 3 years that many property owners will indeed pay more in taxes. But we were able to minimize that increase by lowering the residential and commercial rates by 25% and 8% respectively, and by increasing the homestead exemption. With our finances in order, and all that allows us to do, we have helped to create that positive outlook that ultimately draws people into our city. This last census saw the largest increase in population that the city has experienced since 1930. People are moving to Providence and believing in Providence, investing well over $2 billion over the last 7 years. While this is a sign of a healthy city, it also brings its challenges. The cost of housing today is exorbitant. Tenants are barely scraping by, and it's hard for new home buyers to even find a house. As a city, we're stepping up and doing what we can. Along with my colleagues on the council, there emerged a consensus that our top priority is investing in housing. This means establishing the city's first dedicated revenue stream for affordable housing, allocating American Rescue Plan dollars to housing and homelessness supports, designating funding to help first-time home buyers buy that first home, and helping existing homeowners with home repairs. Now, we've rehabilitated over 700 abandoned homes, and we've broken ground on projects like Paragon Mills, the old Barbara Jordan II, and soon the Superman building, which will each have a transformative impact on their neighborhoods. Our collective efforts have allowed us to create affordable housing units and to oversee the creation of an unprecedented number of houses, apartments, and homes over these past 7 years. I want to thank Bonnie Nickerson and her team at Planning and Jeffrey Dana and his team in the law department for spearheading much of this work, and I ask you to please join me in giving them a round of applause. While having a home goes a long way, there's more that goes into feeling at peace and feeling secure. Our city has unfortunately been shaken by some senseless crimes, and I know people are scared. With public safety, the perception of safety and the reality on the ground both matter. The reality is that the last 2 years have seen a worrisome increase in gun crimes, both in our city and throughout the nation. While this has caused incalculable pain, there is reason for measured optimism going forward. With almost a third of the year gone by, shooting incidents are close to the lowest they've been year to date in a decade, and they have declined by 50% from last year. Of course, we're going to monitor it closely and intervene proactively as the year progresses. And aside from gun crimes, I also want to address the perception and reality of crime more generally in our city. While there is a perception that crime is the worst it has ever been, the reality is that violent crime as a whole is down to some of the lowest levels in modern history. Your risk of being the victim of a random crime is lower today in Providence than it perhaps ever has been over the past 10 and over the past 10 years, robberies have fallen 70% and burglaries are down 80%, both incredible, remarkable declines. Now, it takes all of us to stay safe, but I want to particularly tip my hat and thank our police department for all that they do for keeping us safe and secure. Over the years, we have collectively invested in shoring up our police department. And with the police academy that will soon be trained, I recently learned that we will have hired more police officers during our 2 terms together than at any time that we have records for in the city's history. We will end the year with about 480 officers, an increase of about 40 officers from 7 years ago. While we've added new officers, we've shattered every record for racial and gender diversity, as our department more and more reflects the community it serves. While we've done this, we've integrated technology like body cameras and improved recruiting and training processes. The Providence Police Department has been and will continue to be one of the most forward-thinking and progressive police departments in the country. Now I'm gonna have a little fun here. But, not to be outdone, our fire department gives the Providence Police Department a run for its money. Already recognized as a leader for its Safe Stations program, the fire department sprang into action during the pandemic and administered vaccine doses to thousands of city residents. Every person was treated kindly, with dignity and respect, as our team worked efficiently to get folks in and out. And now, behavioral health clinicians are going to be riding with our fire department to provide better services to people experiencing mental health crises. Please join me in recognizing the proud men and women in our fire department for everything that they do. We want everyone to live in stable homes and safe neighborhoods, but we strive for even more than that. We want neighborhoods that have their own character and are designed with people in mind. Working with the City Council, we established a capital improvement plan that sketches out and funds projects for 5-year stretches. With this, we've improved over 100 parks, and now every child in our city lives within a 10-minute walk of a renovated park. We've installed 2 full-size synthetic fields, and now our kids have the best fields of anyone in the state. Roger Williams Park is again shining like the crown jewel that it is. The zoo continues to expand and improve, and the Welcome Center on Broad Street will be completed in the coming months. I look forward to cutting that ribbon and celebrating with the community. I ask you all to please join me in recognizing Wendy Nelson and her team in the Parks Department for everything they did. I live in the Silver Lake neighborhood, and I have to admit that I take some pleasure in being perhaps the first mayor in the city's history to live in the hood. Regardless, I want my son to play outside with his neighborhood friends as he gets older, just like I did and many of us did when we were little. Unfortunately, it's hard to do so with the number of cars that zip down the street. I know I am not the only one that's so frustrated by this, and that's why our Safe Streets initiative has installed hundreds of traffic calming measures to meet the high demand in neighborhoods throughout the city. Today, we are paving roads regularly throughout the city each year, and we're rebuilding them with pedestrians and cyclists in mind. One such project involves paving most of Broad Street and providing an example for what the roads of the future will look like and how they'll make our neighborhoods even more livable. We've also invested together in our neighborhood recreation centers. We opened 2 new centers for the first time in decades. We've expanded programming throughout the city, and today we have more kids participating in our rec programs than ever before, and the rec department's budget has tripled in the last 7 years. I'd like to say that that is money well spent. Please join me in recognizing Mike Stevens and the rec department for always looking out for our kids. All these investments, they enhance our neighborhoods and they help them stand out. But to ensure that our neighborhoods continue to stand out, we've created our 311 program and improved our public works department. We've created systems so that no complaint goes unanswered, and we've upgraded our vehicle fleet so that now we can plow more snow, sweep more streets, and provide the basic city services to upkeep our neighborhoods. We've increased street sweeping from only 1 time a year 7 years ago to a minimum of 4 times for every street in the city this year. And to ensure that our folks have the best equipment and facilities available, I am excited about breaking ground on the new DPW headquarters in the coming months. This building is long overdue, and I thank the men and women at DPW for their commitment throughout all these years. Please join me in giving a round of applause for Leo Parada and the men and women of DPW. We see you, Leo. When I first took office, I heard loud and clear from all of my colleagues on the City Council that felt that City Hall was not investing enough in our neighborhoods. Working as a true team, our priorities quickly aligned, and over the years, we've put unprecedented resources to addressing that concern. By working together over the last 7 years, we've put the focus back into our neighborhoods. And as we look back, I believe we can all say that we have done all we could to create those stable homes and neighborhoods that provide the comfort and security that our residents have always and will always seek out. Now, the second characteristic that I believe is permanent and will never change is that we all want to grow as people, to improve, go farther, and set our kids up for success. We all believe that the best way we can do that is by investing in education. 3 years ago, we asked residents to support a $300 million bond to start rebuilding our schools. Our residents overwhelmingly supported the measure, and it has allowed us to recently break ground on the Narducci Learning Center in the city's North End. Congratulations again, Councilman. Very, very well deserved. And these $300 million are going to allow us to continue breaking ground on several school projects in the months and years to come. Now, aside from the physical infrastructure, we've also tackled the instruction that happens inside of the buildings. The blunt reality is that the traditional public schools are not making the grade. They've been low performing for decades, they remain in a quagmire, and another generation of kids risks being lost. I want to be clear on an important point, as it influences policy decisions that will be made in the future. The failings of PPSD are not due to any individual or group, and therefore cannot be resolved by any individual or group. Our schools didn't get this way because someone didn't care enough, know enough, or execute well enough. The failings of PPSD are structural. Superintendents and principals do not control the district or the schools, and the seniority system does not incentivize teachers in the right way. The dirty secret is that if we really, and I mean really, want to turn around education, it requires a radical transformation. Changing personnel, reorganizing departments, and simply spending more money will not work. Now, while PPSD has struggled, there are some bright spots to celebrate in public education, and that's the expansion of high-performing charter schools and the results they're delivering for our kids. Charter schools, at least here in Providence, are public in every sense of the word, and there is no contradiction in stating that expanding charter schools supports public schools. Over the past 7 years, charter schools have begun to grow at scale in the city, and within time, 20% of our kids will be educated in them, including in our buildings. I hope they will continue to expand so that more kids and families will actually have school choice. Over the years, we've also recognized that what happens in school buildings is only part of a child's education. That's why we're continuing to invest in programs such as Providence Talks and our continuing pre-K facility investments to not only increase the number of seats available, but also improve the facilities and quality of pre-K instruction. We're continuing our investments in one of my favorite initiatives, the $5 summer camp program that literally saves hundreds of dollars a week for families, and hopefully it'll save me a couple $100 a week this summer. It keeps kids safe, well-fed, active, engaged, and exploring new interests. To this day, I don't know of another city in the United States that offers this kind of support. And we complement this with our free education, academic-based summer learning programs. We complement it with our creative Young Maker partnership with the public libraries. And we complement it with the Youth Jobs Initiative that will continue to pay our kids $15 an hour to hundreds of kids in our city. If we want to get ahead as a city, we need to continue to invest early and often so that our kids are prepared to succeed. And speaking of succeeding, we have entrepreneurs that are striving to live the American dream and do well for themselves and for their families. Working with the City Council, we prioritize ARPA funding to get dollars directly into the hands of small business owners, and we have awarded over 225 grants so far. We've reformed the Providence Business Loan Fund, and we've granted over $4 million of low-interest loans to entrepreneurs who no one else would take a chance on. Now, with the next round of ARPA, we will help even further by helping small businesses upgrade technology, providing technical assistance, and positioning them to better compete in the 21st century connected economy. We have to be grounded in the present, but always with an eye towards the future. One exciting opportunity that we intend to fully capitalize on is the growth of offshore wind industry right here in Providence. We are all proud of the fact that offshore wind turbines, the first ones in the country, were assembled and deployed right here at Provport. Years ago, we moved quickly and creatively to provide them the space they needed to assemble those turbines. As they look to expand from 5 to 50 turbines, we have to move creatively once again to get them the space they need to grow. And as we do so, we're beginning to prepare our workforce for the good-paying, clean energy jobs that are being created here in our city. Our economic development team is already working closely with Provport and our other partners and stakeholders in the community to ensure that we continue to seize this opportunity and remain national leaders in the clean energy industry. And one last industry that is near and dear to all of us is the hospitality industry. As the creative capital, we are a restaurant city, and our arts program is second to none. These sectors suffered horribly during the pandemic, but many are emerging stronger and more resilient as a result. Working with local partners, we're creating the special experience of alfresco dining and a fresh open-air stroll that will keep folks coming back for a night out in Providence. We want to support small businesses, and we're going to do it in creative ways, but we also know that there are brass tacks issues that we cannot overlook. That's why this budget continues the tangible tax relief so that 40% of businesses throughout the city will not be paying a dime in inventory tax. We all want to get ahead, but we also know that doing so is not quite fulfilling unless it's tied to something meaningful. The third timeless truth that we're all constantly striving towards is that we all want, or better yet, we all need to be part of something bigger than ourselves. Unexpectedly, the pandemic has caused many of us to seek this out. The pandemic brought about unprecedented hardship. Long after the virus is conquered, the pandemic of loneliness and depression are going to linger. Over the last 2 years, the country saw a rise in overdose deaths, gun deaths, even traffic deaths, all eerily connected, even though the reasons aren't fully understood. And it's fair to say that our collective anxiety about politics, war, climate change, social unrest, and so much else while at the same time, this anxiety being aided and abetted by social media have produced a mental health crisis in our country that won't be going away anytime soon. It's left many of us wondering, what's our purpose and what's this all about? But moments like these tend to arouse the better angels of our nature. I will never forget perhaps my most emotional moment as mayor when the vaccines finally arrived in the city. All of us, sprang to action to get it out to vulnerable seniors. I remember all those seniors, the way they wept with deep emotion, the way they felt existential relief, and how appreciative they were of everyone's efforts. I think almost every single person in this room volunteered at one point or another, as did hundreds of city residents. Many of us felt the meaning and purpose of our work more acutely during those days than at any other time. The pandemic and the hardship inspired our city to do even more to help. The City Hall effort was led by PEMA, by MCCS, and the fire department. They worked double shift, they worked weekends, they made house calls, and they kept going on fumes to make sure that every senior got vaccinated. Please join me in thanking PEMA, MCCS, the fire department, and all of our volunteers. When people have been most in need, we've stepped up. When immigrants were targeted, we created municipal IDs. And when tenants faced a slew of evictions, we created an effective right to counsel. We created jobs for the unhoused through a hand up. To tackle persistent poverty, we launched a guaranteed income pilot. To stop violence, we created mentorship programs and nonviolence training. And to address the generational harm endured by the Black community, we led the effort to change the state's name and launched a truth, reconciliation, and reparations process. We've never shied away from taking on the issues that matter to all of us. And when people in our city are in need, we step up to help. These measures not only help their situations, but also reassure them that they are part of us, that they belong, that they're part of our community. This is an urgent time to do just that, to remind folks. Because we live in a time of heightened fear and anger. These are powerful emotions, causing many of us to seek out and retreat to the security of our own tribes. But the biggest lesson of the pandemic is, I believe, that we are all connected, that my health and well-being is connected to yours, and vice versa. And in spite of what we all might see on social media, it's that spirit of camaraderie, of common purpose, based on those permanent and timeless qualities that our residents will always seek, that is who we really are. That's what has made us great, and that's what will sustain us great. Many years ago, I stood on this very spot and stated that I wanted Providence to be the top mid-sized city in the United States. Now, I know I'm biased, but there is no place else I would rather live, and no place else I will likely live. For all the challenges and differences that exist, I believe more than ever that we have something really special here in Providence. As we all prepare to pass the baton to the next generation of city leaders, I'm excited to look back on what we've done together. But I'm even more excited to look forward to the new and different directions that they will take our city. As I sign off from this platform for the last time, I want to make two emphatic points. First, I pledge to you to bring the same intensity the same intensity and dedication to my job over these last 8 months that I brought for the full 7 years. We're going to sprint to the finish line. And second, I state unequivocally to you that the state of our city is strong and is poised for even more greatness in the years ahead. Thank you, City Council. Thank you, Team Elorza. Thank you, Providence, and God bless.